Russ and you're watching the debut of the Wake Up American Media Network. I'm here today with Bill Federer, and I've been reading and hearing about Bill now for about 4 months, and just met him 30 minutes ago. And what an interesting man. Bill, we're thrilled to have you here at our debut, and I know you traveled probably at great inconvenience, but something about Bill is he's a prolific author. He is a student of history, and I think more out of passion than anything else. But the things that we've been talking about are so interesting to me, and I know they're going to be interesting to you too. We were just talking a few minutes ago, and I told Bill, or shared with Bill, that my father, who's one of the greatest men I've ever known, loves history. And it was through my father that I kind of put it together when I was about in the 8th grade, that there was a similarity between the word Kaiser, which Hitler used in Germany, and I think that actually went back before Hitler, that started in Germany. But I was kind of wondering where that title came from. And I noticed the similarity to the word Caesar. And Bill has something to say, but I'm going to let him explain that to you. But I also noticed that the Tsar, C-Z-A-R, even the way it's spelled, also looks like Caesar. And those are kind of the little things that people don't necessarily get. If I had had history, a history teacher like Bill, I would have been riveted. But most I've learned out of school because I was just interested in how things came about or what happened. There are a lot of lessons from history, I think, that we can apply to our culture today. And I think Mark Twain said, the one thing that we learn from history is that we learn nothing from history. So people like this, who ran for Congress 3 times, and as a student of history can teach us a lot. Plus, he's a gentle, wonderful, genuine man, and he's fun to listen to. Bill, we're thrilled to have you here.
Well, Russ, great to be here. And John F. Kennedy said that history is to a people what memory is to a man. If you can imagine a person that doesn't know where they came from, doesn't know that they can make bad decisions. And so it's important for us to know history. One of the books that I put together, it's called Change to Change, and it's an overview of 6,000 years of world history.
Wow.
Sort of a daunting task. I decided to research every civilization that has ever existed on planet Earth and found some interesting things. The first human records appear about 3,000 or 4,000 BC. Sumerian cuneiform on clay tablets in the Mesopotamian Valley, which is today Iraq, and then Egyptian hieroglyphics on papyrus, where we get the word paper. And so 3,000 or 4,000 BC, we're around 2080, that's 6,000 years of recorded human history, human beings writing down human records. And if you think of it, 6,000 years is not that long. It's only 60 people living 100 years each back to back.
Wow.
Everyone's met someone who's lived 100 years, maybe a grandma. We're talking 60 grandmas, and you're all the way back to the beginning of recorded human history. And then I sought out what was the most common form of government in all of this recorded human history, and it is kings. Now, they go by different names: Pharaoh, Caesar, Kaiser, Sultan, Tsar, Attila the Hun, Genghis Khan, Julius Caesar, King Kamehameha, Montezuma, the King of Spain, France, Austria, but it's kings. And of course, I sort of speculate that this trend of wanting to accumulate power, you can trace it all the way back to maybe the Garden of Eden, right? And then Cain killing Abel, and then one king taking a kingdom from another king. And so you put some babies in a playpen, one of them will take the rattle from the others. And you put some kids on a playground, one of them is the bully hogging the ball. And you put some people in the woods, one of them is the Indian chief, and you put them in an inner city, one of them is the gang leader. So it's sort of like the Lord of the Rings. Everyone wants this ring of power. And it's this dynamic where if you are friends with the king, you are more equal. If you are not friends with the king, you are less equal. And if you are an enemy of the king, you're dead. It's called treason. So for most of world history, equality was how close of an orbit can you get to the king. And so we see as time goes on, these kingdoms get bigger and bigger and bigger. So the first was Sargon of Acadia, and today that's Assyria, but the Akkadians ruled from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean. And then you had the Babylonians, and then the Assyrians, and then the Elamites, which became the Persians. And then you had 33 major Egyptian dynasties over 2,000 years, and then Cyrus of Persia, and then all Persia conquered by Alexander the Great. He conquers from Greece to India. And then in India, you have Maharaja, which means the great kings. And then China, there's 18 major dynasties over 5,000 years. Power is in the hands of the emperor. And then you have the Roman Caesars and the Byzantine emperors and the Muslim sultans. And finally, the biggest king with the biggest empire that planet Earth had ever seen was the British Empire.
Wow.
The sun never set on the British Empire. They controlled all of India, a quarter of the world's population right there, all of Hong Kong, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, the Americas, British Guyana, and Barbados and Bermuda, Jamaica. They had, of course, countries in Africa, Egypt, Kenya, down to South Africa. And America decides we're going to break away from the king.
Right.
And our founders didn't like the king thing, for whatever reason. And so they decided they wanted to run as far as they could in the opposite direction. They took the power of the king and separated it into 3 branches, separated it federal to state level, and then tied up this federal Frankenstein with 10 handcuffs we call the first 10 amendments. So in a sense, all our Constitution really is a bunch of hurdles to prevent the rubber band from snapping back into the hands of a king.
Isn't that something?
And unfortunately, after every crisis, we see that this subconscious, natural human tendency is at work, and power wants to concentrate. And I can share more about that if you want.